Hello BookTube, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to talk about March. Yes, March. Not the thing that you would do in the army, which there's plenty of that going on in some of the books I read, from Essex Dogs by Dan Jones to The Lord of the Rings, Two Towers. There's plenty of marching going along, and we're going to be marching right into March. And a lot of people right now are making plans for their March reading, and during February, I ran into a situation where I was joining in on way too many things. That I was letting BookTube events, read-alongs, whatever, dictate what I was going to do for the month, and had very, very little room for reading on my own. And that pained me. And I set out probably about a week ago to determine that I was just going to ignore March. Everything going on in March, I was going to just flat out ignore it, with one exception. And that one exception still stands. I will be reading along with Roger's Cheap Old Book Club. Not only because I want to support Michael K. Vaughan, who's been an avid supporter of my channel from the very get-go, but because the pick, and the name eludes me, I think it's by I'm drawing a blank because I didn't prepare for that. But since it's in the public domain and it's a science fiction book, an older science fiction book, I'm absolutely going to give it a read. More likely a listen through LibriVox or something. I'm sure there's a recording out there. And I can do that without adding on to my reading time. I did the same thing this month with Prisoner of Zenda, which was his first pick for the Cheap Old Book Club, and absolutely enjoyed it. So I determined I was just going to let everything else pass me by. I had a Mammoth in mind, as an unofficial way of taking part on March of the Mammoths, which is not to necessarily start and finish a bigger book, but to make some headway on one of the bigger books that you have always wanted to get around to, but have put off. And that book that I was planning on doing, Tale of the Genji. So this is edited or translated by Edward Seidensticker. So this is Murasaki Shikibu. This is huge. This is well over 1,000 pages, almost 1,100. And this is, it's not small font, as you can see there. But there are some images to help get through. And that was my plan. I was going to ignore everything else. Then Steve Donahue said, you know what? I'm just going to make my picks for the read-alongs. And so he made his Steve Tiberius Donahue book club pick known. And it's this, Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. And late last year, I had started a series where I was having booktubers give me recommendations on a book, a short story, a novella, a poem, and a graphic novel that I should read. And of course, I think it was November or December, I reached out to Steve to give me his selections for me, and he catered the picks to what he'd like to see me read. And Wolf Hall was on that. Fine. Okay. I can do Roger's Club, and I can do Wolf Hall. And then he added insult to injury yesterday by announcing that him and Micah Cummins, after the smashing success of Essex Dogs, which I absolutely enjoyed, they're going to be reading this, Shogun by James Clavell. As you can see, it's on my shelf. I picked it up before the 500 book challenge because of how highly Michael talked about this after he read it last year. I think it was his Mammoth that he went into and absolutely loved. And so, of course, I'm like, yeah, I mean, there we go. I've got Mammoth, I've got Wolf Hall. I was like, and of course, I'm reading Two Towers this month. I'm assuming we'll do Return of the King next month. What else am I going to be able to read? I'm going to have no time to read anything else. My month is gone. Packed up, sailed away. You know, Steve could read those 3 things in a matter of, half a day. It's going to take me all month. And here's the problem. I want to do that. But at the same time, I don't want to do that. And so today, of all things, I got inspired by a video from one of my favorite channels on BookTube. Vin over at Revenant Reads. We are very much alike in a lot of our interests. And he made a video sharing his progress so far on learning Latin. He's trying to teach himself to learn, read, and be able to translate Latin. And this has been ongoing for a few months. And at the time when he announced it, I was like, you know what? Hey, this is great. I have been meaning to do something like this with Old English. I should do something like that. And of course, nothing ever came of it. But I have been wanting to do things with Old English for years. Literally, years. I've collected a few things here and there over the course of years. So I got to thinking, based on his update on Latin, well, what if my Mammoth isn't one 800-page plus book? What if I redefine, for me, Mammoth? And in this case, it is, instead of being a Mammoth book length, a Mammoth task. It has been literally that elephant in the room. The thing that I've wanted to do, that I've wanted to sit down and just become passable at, not proficient at, just passable. Shoot, I even mentioned it in my extraordinarily average book tag a couple weeks ago. I'd love to learn to read, translate Old English and or Old Norse. I don't have anything Old Norse, but I have Old English. I have loads of it. I printed off quite some time ago. It was a free online class on Old English. So I've got all these things that I've printed out for this in here. I've got Michael Drought. It's on my Barnes & Noble app. His Quick and Easy Guide to Old English or something like that. I've got Sweet's Anglo-Saxon Primer, 9th edition. This is probably the place to start. It's 100 pages, but it's going to have a whole bunch of basics and get me into introductory stuff. I've got an Introduction to Old English by Jonathan Effens. This is 770 pages. This is damn near a Mammoth on its own. I've got 8 Old English poems, edited and with commentary and glossary. So it's got the poems in here. You can see here, the poems are in Old English. So I'd be doing the translating. And then it has commentary on the poems. I've got the Cambridge Old English Reader. This is another 600 pages, and it's a whole bunch of stuff to work with in Old English. I've got 3rd edition of Beowulf by Kleber. This is Old English Beowulf with a whole bunch of notes and extra text by one of the foremost scholars on Beowulf. And then as a bonus, I've got this Old English Literature Cambridge Companion 2. Old English Literature, which has got a whole bunch of different things in here to talk about. On the Old English language, the nature of Old English verse, nature of Old English prose, Germanic language, perceptions of transience, perceptions of eternity, biblical literature. I mean, there's all kinds of really interesting stuff in here. So what if I take that and make it my Mammoth? And then we're back to square one here. Doing that, I don't know how much time I'll allocate. I don't know if it'll be something that I work on every day a little bit. Or, a couple of times a week, I make sure I spend an hour or 2 hours over the course of the entire week working on, reading through and working on some of the exercises or what have you in those. I don't know what shape that's going to take, but I think that's going to be my Mammoth this month in March, is beginning properly down that path. I'm going to tag Dr. Philip Chase, because if you have insight, if you have any helpful links, tips, tricks, whatever, I would love to hear it, because this has been something I've wanted to do for years. It's been a passion of mine. I love Old English literature, the Anglo-Saxon language, the society, the literature, all of it. So I've wanted to learn. I've never taken the time to sit down and actually put a meaningful effort into doing it, and I'd like to change that. So there's my Mammoth. Now, of course, I've got a couple other things that I'll be reading over the course of the month. Of course, Return of the Kings is going to happen, and this is mood read for me. I have no problem doing that. That means I'm probably not doing Shogun. It means I'm probably not doing Tale of the Genji. It means I'm probably not even doing Wolf Hall. I'm sorry. I may get to some ones. I'm a moodish reader. But right now, the book I definitely want to be reading is this right here. This is book 2 in the Legends of the Condor Heroes series. And my wife thoughtfully, when I made a video mentioning how much I enjoyed book 1 and wanted to get the rest of them to read them, she went and ordered it for me and gave it to me for Valentine's Day. And that was a really thoughtful thing. So this is my next read right here. I started reading it tonight and could instantly remember why it was I absolutely adored the first book. It picks up immediately where the first book ends, and I'm just loving it. And then I'm going to be buddy reading a story a day with Greg from Another Bibliophile Reads. So we're going to go through The Wind's 12 Quarters, some stories by Ursula K. Le Guin, which is got to be one of the coolest purple books that I own. Like, it is by far the most purple book in my collection. Will I do anything other than those and Roger's cheap old book club pick? Probably not. And that's okay. If I do, it'll probably be when I get through Roger's cheap old book club, getting, the next Tarzan or Barsoom novel, seeing if they have a LibriVox recording of one of those that I could just listen to and make some progress on one of those. Because I'm really enjoying Burroughs and his writing, and with good reason. It's fun, it's adventurous, it's exciting. So there you go. There's my plans for March. I was going into this, let all of you comment and let me know what I should go with, but the more I started talking through it, the more I knew I'm just going to go with my gut here. It's Old English. That's my Mammoth this year. Let's see how well I can do at taking down that Mammoth. I don't plan to be proficient by the end of March, but I plan to at least be closer to having something that I've wanted to do for years to come to fruition. And Vin, one of the things he held up was a book in Latin that is a kind of a kid's book that he was wanting to get to the point in the next month or two to where he could read it, translating it on the fly while reading it to his children. And if I could find something like that with Old English, my goodness, I would be delighted. So there we go. I'm just going to stop because I'm starting to bramble here. I wanted to get this up and get some input, especially from Dr. Philip Chase, because he is our resident expert on Old English. But Liam from Liam's Lyceum, you might have some input too. I know you have a lot more knowledge than I do already. And so I look forward to any tips that either of you have or anybody else that happens to know the language. I'm here for it. So thank you, BookTube.